Hi guys, Alec, Peirce at the ranch, and we're here very quickly with my snowmobile, my fantastic Peirce 550 fan trail touring we've had for many, many years. A great machine, and I keep it in great shape running and everything else. I didn't have time to do one thing in the spring, and that is grease the suspension. Now, greasing the suspension on these machines is very important because they have several plastic bushings and they have to be greased. If they don't get greased, they seize up and that makes a mess and you got to replace them. So it's not hard. It's not hard to grease them. There are 5 grease fittings, typical most snowmobiles. But they're hard to get to, particularly if you're old like me and can't get up and down easily. So what I've been doing the last few years is what an awful lot of snowmobile enthusiasts and service people do, is I pull the darn suspension out. What? You pull this? Yes, I pull the suspension. It's easy. So that's what we're going to do. That's what this is all about. That's it. But I ran into a couple of problems I'll share with you, because if you have a similar snowmobile, this is a Peirce 550, they're all very similar. And you might appreciate some of these solutions. So first of all, let me apologize for the poor camera work. Both of my camera people are busy. My good friend Kevin, director, cameraman, editor, and everything else. Everything that I'm not, which is a lot. Kevin does. And my alternate camera person is my dear wife Diana, who is inside taking care of our new puppy, a border collie, who requires 24-hour attention. Anyway, so I'm going to switch now. I'm going to point this out while I talk to you about the issues I ran into. Okay, so let's take a look here now. Okay, here's the entire suspension system. Tracks, racks, the whole damn thing sitting on my workbench now. I've taken off 2 wheels here, and here on each side. It's just a bolt and a washer through. Not bolt and washer through, take them off, so I can take the springs off. So you can see on here now the 4 bolts hold this whole thing into your snowmobile. There's one there, and the same on the other side. So this just goes up in there and line the holes up, put the bolts in, draw them tight. And the same at the back. There's one here and one on the other side over there. Now, the front ones are quite easy because the bolts go in. It's a threaded rod. The bolts go in. You torque them up the way they should be. Done. Each side. Done. Out of there. The rear ones are interesting setup. If you look on the inside, you can see it's actually a nut. It actually has, if I can turn it here a little bit, maybe, you can actually see it's a nut. It's got 2 flat sides. The difficulty with this setup is that when you free the bolt, sometimes the nut spins. There's nothing to hold the nut in there. What I finally did, and I had to forget what size it was now, metric wrench, thin one, slid it in there, was able to get it in there and hold that, and then get the nut out. So when you get it out like this, it's very easy to inspect it. You can very quickly look at the skids, see if they're clean, and your service book will show you if there's enough, if the skids are still thick enough, or you have to replace them. Easy to replace. Greasing is extremely important on these Peirce machines. First of all, they spend their life in water and snow, cold, hot, back and forth, and if you're on roads, you probably get a bit of salt and gravel thrown in too. Wonderful stuff for bronze bushings and anything metal. There are 4 very important bushings. This rod right here is actually a hollow rod with a nut and bolt through it. This is a bushing. It moves up and down with the springs and the shock at the back. And correspondingly down in here, this bushing, this rod here as well. This rod just right below it also has a bolt through. It also moves. As this moves back and forth, that moves as well. So these are 2 very important ones, and it's very easy for dirt and crap to get in there and destroy it or freeze it up. If it freezes it up, you got to replace the whole darn thing. Expensive. So they both have grease nipples. Grease nipple on the bottom one, grease nipple on the top one. That's it for the back end. Front end, come on up here. Front end, very similar. Down here, there's another hollow rod with a bolt right through. And this one is attached to the shock, and the shock supports here. And so it moves as well. And has to stay free. If it freezes up and gets stiff, you can jump on the machine and go around the first corner you go around, and the first time you hit a big bump, it'll snap, break right off, because it's frozen hard. It's no longer a bushing. Now it's a piece of steel, a solid piece of steel. It also has a grease nipple on it, one grease nipple here at the front, and grease that. And then right above that, again, a little closer to the front, is another major bushing up here, which has your major shock, which is attached to the front bogies, and it moves up and down. This rotates back and forth. This big steel rod here, which acts as a bushing with the grease fitting on it and a bolt through, very important as well. Now, if you get to the part, as I have, and you discover that these grease fittings are not taking grease, there's only two reasons for that. Either the grease fitting is not very good, not that common, quite frankly, or this is jam-packed and the grease will not go into it. You have no choice but to take it apart, as I have done. I'm going to pull this bolt. I'm going to try the grease first, and I'm going to try to pull that bolt out, or maybe just spin it while I try to put grease to it and see if I can't get grease pouring through there. What you want to see when you grease, here's what you want to see. Watch. I have attached the grease gun to this rear upper, what we're calling this again? Bushing. And when you put the grease gun on and squeeze the trigger, you see, you should see grease coming out each end. Watch. See it? And this side too. Just like that. Now you know the grease is going in. You also know that it has filled the tube, the space in there, and is squirting up both sides. You really want to see it squirting up both sides if at all possible. It's not uncommon for one side to be free and let grease through, but the other side, the rod on the other side, for some reason is jammed up, and it's just a matter of time before that side freezes and breaks. Here's the very front of the suspension system, the tips of the skis, straps, and there's one more fitting right there. There's bushing right through here. So again, and it's really tough to get to if you have the machine, because even though it's facing down, you got to get in here, get the grease gun up on, just a nuisance. But anyway, that one you got to grease as well, which I've done. I got grease pouring out both ends, so we know this bushing is good. I have one bad bushing, this one right here. I cannot get grease to go through this bushing. So I'm going to use a little tip that I got from somebody else and take the pressure off of this spring shock by putting a ratchet strap over top of this bar, and then that'll pull it down and take the pressure off of this shock spring combination and free this up. Then I'm free to, it's safe then to take this through bolt out and clean that out on there and figure out why the grease isn't going through. I want to take another second just to talk to you about loosening up the track adjusters. The track adjusters, as I mentioned, is the track adjusters are these two big bolts here with locking nuts on them. You can see how they fasten in like that, one on each side, and they push this rear set of wheels, this rear set of bogie wheels back against the track to pull the track tight overall. Now, when you go to take the track out, needless to say, you need to take out those. You don't have to take them out, but you need to loosen those track adjusters so these wheels will move forward, which gives you enough slack that you can now get the whole suspension out. Now, what I wanted to mention is a couple of things. First of all, those bolts, when you take them off, to check the wheels and the bearings and that, here's a wheel and bearing. I've taken it right off. There's a bolt and a big washer, with Loctite, by the way. When you take them off, these little funny plastic cone pieces come out too. You see them? Now be careful when you put them back in. You notice that this side of the cone has a ridge. This side of the cone has a flat. And you can see that bolt pushes against that flat. That's exactly right. So when you put it back in, make sure that you have the flat facing that way, not the ridge. You want the flat facing that way. And then the wheel goes back on with the bolt that I would do. And I'm about to put it back in. Everything has been greased, replaced, and cleaned out. You know what I've done? It's all ready. This track's like new. Whew. I mean, listen to these wheels. Exactly. Can't hear anything. They're like beautiful. Anyway, before I put it back in, another tip that I've used makes it a lot easier. Because if you make this thing nice and slim, then it will slip right in to the track. And makes it much easier. Well, one way you can do that is by bringing this set of bogie wheels down. And to do that, you can't do it by hand because it's got these two monster springs in there. But if you take a ratchet strap, hook it down there, up over top, where the shock is, right here, you can see the shock arm there, springs on here, and back over here nice and tightly. And then if you ratchet that strap down as hard as you can, what you're effectively doing is compressing the shock and bending the springs. So now the overall height from there to there is reduced quite a bit, which makes it much easier to slip into your track. So final step, let's put this bugger back in there now. Got all done. You've seen the other part of the video. And now you can also see, this is really a two-man job. Putting the track in, taking it out, taking it up, and putting it back in. However, it can be done by one person. A couple of things that I've already mentioned. Try to, using a ratchet strap, try to squeeze that suspension down in the middle so it's short. And you can see here, right here now, that will actually fit in there. No problem, no struggling. I don't have to hold the track up and try to wiggle it in. The other thing you can do is, you can see what I've done here. If you're working by yourself anyway, good idea. You can actually strap the track up. See, I got a couple of not ratchet straps, just straps on there. Straps, you know what they are. So now the track is sitting down where it belongs on the jack shaft, and that's going to work it in there. The biggest problem, the bogey wheels catching all these little lumps. Like, it'll go in there in just a minute. That's Diana's newest project you hear in the background. Yeah, her new border collie. Complaining that he's not allowed to come over and play with Daddy. But anyway, so now I got to just work this in there carefully, get it straight, and then I can lower the machine, get 2 bolts in here, 2 bolts on the far side. It's 99% done. Get it up, tighten it all up, adjust it, take that ratchet strap off, and then get her spinning, adjust the track so it's true and the proper tension, and go for a ride. And, so it's not that big a job, actually. I'm 75 years old. Hell, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Okay, guys, lots of fun. I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. And maybe there was a couple of ideas in there if you're working on your own. If you're working on your own snowmobile. Hi, talk to you soon. Alec, Peirce at the ranch. I'll take a picture of the machine and me running around in there, just so you know that it actually does work.